Alright, we are going live here. Check all flop, turn check check, river probably check. Is this alright? This seems to be alright. Okay, let me see if I can get some tables going here. Just make sure I'm open, sitting. Bet check bet here, pretty gross. But first this player I think I'm calling. I think there's going to be enough random airtap hands for me to justify calling. It's close, but yeah. Trying to get some tables going here. Seems to be going just fine. It's funny, I was checking some screen names to see if they maybe had older screen names that I recognized, and then I saw that someone on these tables, I won't mention who it is, was coached by me. Which is kind of funny. Like you're playing with someone and then later on you realize, hey wait, I've been coaching this dude. I remember the first time I was playing with someone on the same table in the CFP. We started with 5 players in 2021, almost 5 years ago, 1st of April 2021, and it took like a year or so, and then we had the first players that were moving up slowly but steadily, and at some point I was like playing a 1K table on GG, and then someone popped up that I had been coaching from like 100 and now up to 1K. Like a most surreal experience. Easy call here, not much to be said. And we're going to check call again on the river. Like in the previous situation, this guy went with the bet check bet, which is fine. There's nothing wrong with the bet check bet line. In fact, in most pools, I expect it to be overfolded. But I think he might be betting the river a bit too often, I guess is what I'm saying. Let me know if the audio is alright. I'm not entirely sure if it is. I'm going to do a relatively short stream today. I had a few coaching sessions today, and I've got like 2.5 hours left in my working day, so I decided to go and play some. Interesting turn. I think I want to check. The ace shouldn't be too worrisome because my friend here shouldn't really be check calling a bunch of ace highs versus 3/4, but it's still something to take into consideration. I'm going to check back. That's hard for him to get to call me with worse. I'm on a wheel texture like this, where wheel straight is possible. The big blind makes a decent amount of strong hands, or enough hands with equity that we don't technically want to range bet here. We could still go for it, especially versus a Chinese player who might not check raise us enough and generally might be playing a bit too weak. Like he tank called a little bit. I'm going to cheat here and bet 3/4, a bit smaller, because I feel like there's going to be a lot of check call, check folds when he tank calls like this. Also, he quite likely is going to overfold versus a smaller turn bet, smaller than I technically should be betting turn bet. I should be going overbet or check here, but I think it's just harder to defend versus B75, or I don't think that I know it because of data. So you just go ahead and go B75 and just go B75 with way too many hands. Our hand is fine to bet anyway, but I would be betting with a lot of air type hands there. Here we are getting a half-pot bet in a limp pot. We're just going to call with a 5 out pair. If we had pocket deuces without a diamond, then we can consider folding, but now this is just too strong. Then we've got, can hit 5 outs for 2 pair, or trips. Open ender to go with our hand. We are still beating stuff like ace, jack, 6-5 of diamonds, like a whole range of hands. Pot size bet is a bit annoying on the river because those are typically a bit stronger. So we're just going to fold here with 4th pair. The moment that he bets pot sized, our EV just goes down dramatically. If he checks back the river, then we have a pretty decent EV. If he bets half pot, it's kind of okay. But if he goes pot sized, it just drops down quite a bit because data shows that they do that with too strong of a range. That doesn't mean that we can't ever call, but we need to be somewhat selective. He went bet, bet, bet. Sizes up on the river. We've got 4th pair. If it's a true recreational, then he might be randomly betting with like, I don't know, 8-9 here, thinking he's bluffing, right? So, or like 8-6 of diamonds or ace-8 of diamonds, whatever. Very easy fold. Why 1 million hands at 500 now? What win rate are you expecting? Good question. I don't know. 2 questions actually. So, why 1 million hands at 500 now? For those of you that have no clue who I am, let me give you a little bit of background information. I'm a professional poker player and a coach. I run my own coaching program called Nachos Poker. That is like my main job these days. the last few years I've played professionally alongside that. This is basically the first year where I'm not actually playing professionally, as in I'm focused more on making sure that my company is running well. I want to take some more free time to spend with my family. So, and also like I moved from Andorra back to the Netherlands, so I don't really have a good starting position to play professionally, as the tax in the Netherlands currently is like 40% for the operator, which means very low rakeback on GG. And then we have got iPoker where I can play, and Unibet, which doesn't really have action. So basically all those things considered, I kind of decided, okay, I'm not going to go and play full time. I'm going to focus more on coaching and private coaching for the CFP. And yeah, that's basically the plan for this year. But then I realized I kind of miss playing poker. I dislike the feeling of teaching someone how to play poker and then not having played poker or not having a decent sample for quite some time. So I figured I want to do some sort of a challenge. I've been streaming some 1K, I've been streaming some anti-games, I've been streaming some Russian cash. I end up going with 500 NL because the games are always going to be running 24/7, and it's the closest. Like, I've always played rag tables, so I'm going to call here. So fast fold games aren't really my thing. Let me get a seat here. So I'm not going to be playing my normal games. My average stake over the last 3 years has probably been like 1,300 NL or something like that, between 1K and 2K. I'm going to go for call versus half pot. I think it's kind of a gross sizing. I think I'm going to bet myself, but relatively small. So I was in a situation where I'm more so a coach than a poker player right now. GG. But I still want to play poker. I don't want to play in the evenings, which means that there's not going to be any option for me to play on any site but GG. Because I want to, like, I've got 2 young kids, I want to hang around with them. For the first time in years, I've been having breakfast with my family. But also in Andorra, like the first time I would see them was at around 5, basically. 5 p.m. I would wake up really early, grind the best games, and then I would grab lunch myself, even though we were like living, like I was obviously working from home. And then sorry, I need to play this hand. And then at the end of the day, in the afternoon, I would coach, do company stuff, and then at the end of the day, I would be around and I would play with the kids and whatnot. But they're like 2 and 3 years old right now. The chances of me like making an amount of money that is going to significantly impact my financial situation is very, very small at this point. So long story short, I want to play poker. I don't think 1K and 2K on GG are going to be great for me because I get very little rake back. So the higher you play, the bigger of an impact that has on GG, because most win rates, like the win rate of the average and median rack, filtering out all of the shitty racks, is like minus 1.5 big blinds. So if you've got like very little rake back, then you barely overcome that. Even if I assume that I'm significantly better than the average rack, it doesn't still make sense for me to be playing at the absolute worst hours. Because I could just as well play 500 and I'll make more or less the same amount, but with higher chances of me actually winning. Lower chances of me dropping like 100, 150k. So all sorts of reasons why I decided to focus and play just a million hands of 2-5. Keeps me sharp whenever I'm making content for the CFP, or whenever I'm coaching someone. I can tell them, hey, I was in a similar spot not too long ago. I thought it was interesting because of XYZ. Or, yeah, I've been going through some negative variance myself. So let me tell you what I did over the last few weeks and what I usually do. Rather than, yeah, I kind of know how it feels to run that because I did that like 2 years ago. But I don't really play anymore, and I also don't experience any swings, which is like not necessarily a horrible thing, but like for me, I don't want that. So that's why I am willing to play poker still. Also, I really like the game. I always tell my wife that at some point I'm going to retire, and when I retire, I'll be a poker player. So yeah, a bunch of reasons why I want to play poker, and then this is kind of the only game that I can get consistent action on, where any time of the day, especially during the day, I can, this is going to be checked, just blocking folds here. I can just get 4, 5, 6, 7 tables and I can stream it for you guys. Also, it's like a fairly competitive environment still. There we are, an interesting hand. Kind of not sure, but probably okay. Okay. So, long story short, I don't want to play the absolute worst hours in like for my social life. I don't want to play deep at night or like very early in the morning. I want to play during the day. I'm in a jurisdiction that's just really shitty in that regard. There's not a lot of options. I can play on WPT Glow, I can play on Coin Poker, I can play on ACR, I can play on basically any site except for low reg back GG. So here we'll bet. Like bet the flop, I'm going to bet the turn and bet the river. So the options are very limited. I still want to play poker, but I don't necessarily need the money in poker to pay the mortgage because I've got a pretty successful company. So all those things combined, I was like, okay, I basically needed a challenge over the last few weeks because I wasn't playing too much poker and didn't really have a clear direction. So I was like, okay, let me just do this. This sounds like a cool challenge. What win rate are you expecting? It's tough to say. Like I'm playing the absolute worst time of the day. Some of the worst times of the day, I guess. Like if you play happy hour, it's even a bit worse, but play a relatively bad time zone. I'm not going to be overly selective with my tables. Also not going to be extremely poor with table selection. I just think not going to focus on that too much. I don't know. Like I don't know what I can expect. I think pre-rake back, the average win rate is like the average win rate of the median regular is like minus 1.5, minus 1.7. I think I'm doing better than that for sure, but we'll have to see. I don't know. I haven't put in a sample on GG in quite some time. In the last stream, I mentioned that I've got a sample of a whole bunch of older hands back when the high hand jackpot was still a thing and I was still in Poker Detox. Of roughly 400k hands where I won 0.7 big blinds per 100 hands. But even 400k hands in that regard is not enough. Okay. Do you think the EV of betting one big blind on the flop 20% is better than 25%, 33%? In GTO Wizard, betting so small, usually the EV is a downgrade. Yeah, that's true. I've done a lot, way too much work on this. We spent literally weeks coming up with like the highest EV strategies. in a theoretical environment. In other words, versus a solver. The differences between small bet sizes is quite minimal. Okay, it's usually not large, but it is there. And usually the smaller bet sizes are worse, except for on ace-high textures specifically, and monotone textures, where min betting is slightly better overall. If you take all of the monotone textures versus all of the other textures. I went with monotone, with 20%, because I want to give my opponent a sizing that I've studied but they didn't. So like my small sizing is basically very small. But it's like, yeah, also not the most important thing, I think. So if you go 1/3 every time, it's like kind of whatever. What are the best places to play as online pro, the safest? What do you think about Malta? I read that you play, for example, on sites that has many multi-licenses like GG. You can do 10% tax. I'm not entirely sure about that. I've looked into it and I think there's ways you can get it to like 0% or with a rebate, you get it to, well, we check that here. You can get it to 65, sorry, from 35 to 10% tax. But I'm not sure. Like, if I was a professional, a younger professional, like just me, I would probably look into, in Europe, I would probably look into Austria if I wasn't playing tournaments. Kind of a shitty. Am I banned? Oh. You're not banned. You're good. So a check raise here. I'm going to give up here. So I'm not sure. Like, I would probably go with something that has 0% tax, no costs of moving there. Relatively clear tax structure. If you're not making like an awful lot of money, then yeah. Like, let's say you're making up to 100k a year or something like that. I think going with a country where the tax is 0% and it's relatively clear, then you're probably going to be fine. So yeah, and like, if I was young, I'm still, I like to think I'm still young, but if I was like early 20s, I would also probably look more into places like Southeast Asia where the grinding times are a little bit better. Like in Europe, you're kind of like either waking up really early if you want to play on US facing sites, or you're staying up really late. In Southeast Asia, you can probably like grind 9 to 5 and then grind like on US facing sites mostly. Also, cost of living would be lower. Probably can find a country there where it's tax free or more or less tax free. So yeah. Because you're in the Netherlands, you can't get stream attack. That's correct. I can't get the stream attack in the Netherlands. There's a lot of things in the Netherlands that are really shitty for online poker, for online professional poker. I guess like for online poker in general. It's like Kind of a grim situation over here. Basically, government trying to fill the gaps in their budget by taxing the living shit out of online gambling, even though you're far past the point where it makes sense. Where like you're helping the population, the general population. Like obviously I'm biased when as a professional poker player, you don't need to design it for me specifically. But this, I guess, very clearly pushing players to gray or black markets. And then that's one. And then two, also for like marketing and stuff like that, I feel like they are like the stream attack thing. It's like it's relatively stupid because like most of the we can't have the stream attack. There's very little marketing allowed, and there will be zero marketing allowed. That's the goal at least. And that might seem like good because people won't get addicted is the idea, but people will still get addicted. They will just get addicted to sites that are not legal, but that are accepting and don't have a license. So yeah. So yeah, it's somewhat annoying. Probably one of the things that I've struggled with most is like last year I've played a reasonable amount of poker, made quite a bit of money, and knowing that I can't really do that from the Netherlands unless I like bend myself in ways I don't want to bend myself is somewhat frustrating. How much EV do you think you lose by streaming in terms of other racks watching your strategies, exploitative plays you make versus them? I think very little in practice, but I could be wrong. Also, I don't really play super exploitative. I would say like I'm playing. Obviously, my baseline is more exploitative than most other players. But I don't really feel like I'm playing a very exploitative style. So for instance, people expect me to, if you've seen my graphs, my old school graphs in my Run It Once thread, for instance, on my blog, you might think that I'm just overbluffing everywhere. I'm actually not doing that. I play relatively close to balanced in most lines, and then if there's like a clear exploit, like earlier we had a relatively clear exploit where I went bet small and then bet 75 on the turn, but it was versus a recreational, or it is versus like a weak regular. If I'm playing versus, let's see, like Machas here, who has played millions and millions of hands of 500, 1k, 2k, I'm not going to, like, I don't know, I'm going to play more or less balanced against him, whether I'm streaming or not. I'm going to be not super aggro. And the win rate that I expect to get into these games, it's hard to say, but I hope that I can get to like 2 big blinds per 100 hands pre-reg back, but we'll have to see. I'm not sure. I think if I'm breaking even after 1 million hands pre-reg back, I can live with that. That would be 1.5 big blinds more than the average reg is winning, but I don't know, right? Like it's hard to say. Welke site zou je aanraden om te spelen? Want GG Poker is super hoge rek. Which side I would recommend if I was in the Netherlands? Like I'm in the Netherlands. It depends on your situation. It largely depends on your situation. Are you playing professionally? Are you just like getting started? Are you playing 10 and now, you're playing 50 and now, you're playing 100 and now. Like the ecosystem in the Netherlands is kind of bleak. And the overall poker ecosystem isn't like the healthiest it's ever been, right? Like I'm not like one of those doomsday grinders that is like, oh, everything's going to hell and we will never win again at poker, because I see in the CFP, in the team, that there's plenty of players still making low to mid 6 figures, like I don't know, 200k a year or something like that. Obviously not everyone in the team does, but like enough players that would, like if I was living in any other country, let's say I was still in Andorra, I would be able to make 300k in a year. I'm pretty confident of that. I would need to work hard. I'm not saying it's easy, but I would be able to do that. Let me go ahead and overbet here. We got a relatively quick call. Is it interesting? So, sorry to not answer your question, but basically what I would do is probably I would go and play on Unibet. I would probably play on Unibet. If I was playing up to like 200 now, then you can find action there pretty much during the day as well. If you're playing higher, it gets a bit bleak, but the rake is relatively low. The games are going to be pretty good. It's kind of annoying. It's kind of annoying that there is. Let me just. That there's no hand histories, but one Google search might help you in that regard, as there might or might not be solutions to that. I'm not playing on Unibet. I don't want to tell anyone to break TOS, but so that's all I say. But I would play on Unibet. I would seriously consider moving if I was getting close to being a professional. And most likely I would not become a professional in this day and age in the Netherlands. We got a check here. I think we can go something like half pot and check. We might be able to bet this at some frequency. Probably something more like pocket jacks when we have it, pocket tens. This is close though. This is shitty river. It's an interesting spot though. Like there's a bunch of hands that are actually going to barrel the turn with an ace. Like there's some ace queen of clubs perhaps that could have this. Ace jack of clubs. Tempted to call here. Like ace queen with a heart, ace queen with a spade is going to bet somewhat frequently, I guess. Ace 10 of clubs, you're going to have he's playing relatively passive. Okay, I'm going to fold because of that. It's really generally really hard to bluff from the big blind on a board like this. Interesting spots. In your CFP, do you follow NL 1000 players? Is there a possibility to be coached by one of them? I'm not entirely sure if I understand the question, but we've got plenty of NL 1K players. Do you follow NL 1000 players? Let me show you. I'm going to try to show you while I'm playing, but I'm not sure if I should actually. Now I think of it, because I'm not sure if these people would want their names out and their graphs. But basically, we've got a mid stakes coach, and then we've got a guy that plays 500 now and 1K. You can go and get coached by me. I guess I'm not a 1K plus player, but okay, at least not now, right? We've got a guy that's playing 1K on GG. We've got a guy that's playing 1K and 2K on Ignition. We've got a guy that plays 400 now to 2K in both Ignition as well as WPN. Then we've got a coach that is playing up to 1K, which is the highest limit in the Italian pools. Besides that, we've got a group coach that is playing up to 5K. He does do one-on-one coaching, but he does some group coaching for us. So that's kind of the... That's kind of what we've got right now in terms of coaches. Is 300k net or before costs? That's I don't understand the question. Okay. Cost of internet, or do you mean rake or rent? I would think I could get to like 300k in profits. Probably shouldn't put a number out there, but I think that's somewhat reasonable. If I didn't have a company, I should have said that as well. If I didn't have a company and would want to like focus on poker all year round, play a lot of volume, then I think I would cap out at 300k or something like that. Let's say a more realistic target would be around 200k. Should you focus on win rate or break back on GG? Hard to say. Hard to say. Yeah, I'm not sure about that, to be honest. I wouldn't probably. Like I've never focused solely on rake back and grinding. Like even when I was playing these games quite a bit, I was just playing poker, table selecting somewhat okay, but also not insta leaving like tables immediately if I had the chance or whatever. But I was never like a very good high volume player. Like I was always playing like 500,000 hands a year or something like that. Also, at what stakes 100k a year is possible? Probably like a 200 Russian cash. That's doable if you play enough volume and you're truly beating the games. Will I be able to be crushed on my own if I trade Lucid Poker GTO trainer every day until I have 68? No, I don't think you will be. It's kind of funny you just say that. And there's a guy in our team, his name is Izzy. And this is basically what he did initially. He went all in on GTO Wizards and trained every spot till he had a very high accuracy. But he was still struggling a bit. I'm sorry, I'm trying to see some tabs here. Okay. The problem with that is that the goal is not to play precise. The goal is to play profitable poker, right? So, like, even the most, I should say, like, wait, let me just get this sorted first. Okay, even the most, like, trying to find the right word here, but extreme advocate for GTO play, we call here obviously, ding 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 ding, even that guy, let's say that guy would be playing in a live game in a casino in the US. He was like, okay, I'm just going to play this game in the US. And these games in the US are great. And he's sitting there next to John, who is like 67, retired entrepreneur, like, nice guy, but he doesn't really play any hands. Hasn't 3-bet the entire session, and they've been playing for hours and hours, and he's just sitting there, barely betting, just like trying to make hands. Friendly guy, but clearly very nitty. And we're going to go in here. Then at some point, this player is in a hand with John. Player opens under the gun. They're pretty deep. Wait, I mean, I'm time making on a few tabs, sorry guys. Okay, let's be cool here. Nice, I think we won a big pot there. They get into a hand. John ends up 3-betting. From the big blinds, our player opens under the gun, John ends up 3-betting, and now our player is sitting there with ace-5 suited, and he studied the ranges, and he's like, ah, man, I just got a 3-bet, a 4-bet here, whatever, like 58% of the times. Let's say that this player is the most active advocate for GTO play. Even he will say, well, probably not this time, right? Like, doesn't make any sense. Now, that doesn't mean that if you have got a very high accuracy, like, I understand, right? Like, you could do that and still be a GTO player. And I think you should still study GTO a lot. Like, it's the most useful tool that we have, pretty much, alongside data, I think. But the problem is that in a lot of spots, what you will learn is you will learn a model that assumes that your opponent is playing these ranges. Whereas in a lot of spots, your range in practice, even though you might be playing with, like, let's say 92% accuracy, in a random river spot, does not at all look like what it should look like in theory. And the same thing counts for your opponent. So, like, it's basically like you would look at your range through one of those funny mirrors, right? Like, mimicking the solver then isn't going to be generating you enough. At the same time, like, money is transferred from one side to another by one player playing unbalanced and the other player taking advantage of it. Like, the greatest example is someone that is choosing too big of a bet size with strong hands and then too small of a bet size with weaker hands, and checks too weak as well. If he ends up checking, now we can overbluff. If he ends up betting pot, now we should be overfolding, and that's how DV from one player to another is transferred, right? In this game that we're playing right now, we're paying 8 big blinds per 100 hands in rake, which means I should be leaving the table, because even if I'm the best player at this table, which I'm not claiming to be, but even if I was, then I would need to overcome 8 big blinds per 100 hands in rake, which I'm not. So that's not really a reasonable prospect. Okay. So in order to overcome that, we actually need to deviate from equilibrium. If everyone was playing GTO, perfect GTO, then everyone would be losing 8 big blinds per 100 hands. So it will help you to understand everything better, but yeah, I don't think nearly enough. I would probably invest in coaching in some way. I'm biased because I'm a coach and I'm selling coaching products, but I was also once a student. When I was like in 2019, I was in Poker Detox, and I paid a lot of money. Yeah, like a lot of money to them, in part because I was pretty successful. So I made a lot of money as well, thanks to them. But yeah, that's basically the story there. Like there's an interesting spot. I felt like I should be range betting because I have such a good range, but I'm going to give up, I think. So yeah, like for me, it paid dividends. And I think probably like you need some type of guidance, whether it is coaching, whether it's joining a team, whether it's just finding a group of like-minded players, whether it is buying a course, watching Run It Once videos, watching YouTube videos. You need to get a sense of direction in which you can spot the market inefficiencies, if that makes sense, where you can spot imbalances. That's how I feel about it, at least. Okay, if someone is comfortably beating 100 now and has a decent sample, 200k beating 200 now, pre-rake back, how much do you think a player like this would beat 1k for, if at all? I think you'd be probably fine beating 1k. Like, GG is slightly different, because if your win rate is the same at, your pre-rake back win rate is the same at all stakes, then your win rate at lower stakes will be higher. And that's basically by design on GG. If you compare it to a site like Ignition, where we've got a bunch of data on, then in most cases, in most cases, the player that is making, like we basically, there's not an awful lot of difference between lower and higher stakes over the years where we've accumulated data. So it doesn't necessarily mean that if someone's beating 200 now, he's automatically beating 1020. But it does mean that once he gets to 1020, his win rate will be more or less the same. Now, specifically 1020 is slightly different than the latest data that we have on 510 is also like slightly worse, specifically on Ignition, but that's been what it was for the last 5 years or something like that. So let's just assume that that is the case. The thing that you'd want to do is probably move up to 500 now first, right? And then table select, take your shots on Saturday nights when people are drunk, so that you increase the chances of you landing the shot. Feel free on a Monday afternoon to just play 200 now and take your shot at like 500 now when the games are better, or when you can see a decent spot. Actually, what did this guy have? Because I can't remember. 5-5, okay. It's good. So yeah. I think most of all the answer would be move up. Most of the money is not made at 200 now. Hello from England. Good luck and thank you for the great content. You're welcome, man. Live, I can beat 5-5, but online I have troubles at 50 now. We had a guy. He joined the CFP relatively early on. I want to say in like 2022 or something like that. And he was playing online at 50 now, and then live in his local casino in Philadelphia, or close, somewhere close. I'm not sure. It was probably not Philadelphia, but like in at the East Coast, or somewhere in the East Coast. Can't even remember where it was exactly, but I want to remember now. But anyway, he was playing live like up to 510. And then online 50, you know, and then he struggled at 50, you know, wasn't really making money. So in the end, he said, okay, I'm just going to stop playing online because the opportunity cost is too high. I'm just going to go live at 510 and I'll just pay like a yearly membership fee. And then he proceeded to win like, I don't know, 200k or something like that in that year, playing 510 and some 10-20 on the East Coast. I think later on those games died and he wasn't really winning as much anymore. But yeah, if you're in an environment with like relatively low rake, like in the US, pretty good games, then live is probably where most of the money is. I've coached a fair amount of live poker players. Some on the West Coast, some in Vegas specifically. This guy in the East Coast, coaching someone in Macau right now. So yeah, like depending on where you're located, like life can be very, very profitable. I'm not. Wait, let me see. In one of Saulo Costa's video, I remember he said if you play like GTO Wizard, he could have you could have 4 or 5 big blinds in win rate in 500 now. Do you think he's wrong? I'm not sure if he said that. I would probably say like I don't want to say he's wrong because like I don't know. I'm not necessarily more qualified than him, or at least I don't feel like I am. Also, I don't know what exactly he said, but if he said that, then intuitively that doesn't feel right, because like there's going to be so many puns versus the pool that a solver would make. But maybe he's right. I don't know. I'm not sure. Is it still possible to make 7 figures in online cash games these days? What is the reasonable ceiling you assume for a decent online high-stakes cash game rack in today's environment? It depends so much. I think the ceiling is largely dictated by your location and the games you've got access to. Skill level is superior. It's far less superior than that as a predictor of what the ceiling is. I'm gonna go bet 75 here. So, but I would say for most regulars, like basically the bulk of the money in these days games is kind of feels like a spot where we should have jams. But I could be wrong. We'll jam anyway, though, I guess. We just go B40. I'm not entirely sure. Like, if it was double flush, I'm 100% sure, but okay. Sorry, what was the question again? Yeah, like 7 figures. Like, what is the ceiling? Like, the liquidity is at like 1k, 2k. Like, I'm just going to call off here. It's kind of shitty, but like we turn 2 pair. That's unlucky. Let's run it twice. Win one, lose one. Can't do it today. And like I think you can win. Like I said, like 300k is probably the ceiling for like most. It's like a pretty high number to get to. You need to play a bunch of 1020, and you need to play a lot of hours. Usually, people play a lot less than they should at 1k and 2k, I think. So that's already one. Like this is assuming you're able to put in like a solid amount of volume. And most players don't do that because they want to have a life outside of poker and they want to study a fair amount, which makes some sense, I guess. But let's say like somewhere around the 200k level is like it's a very realistic ceiling for players like that. Is it still possible to make 7 figures? There probably aren't many that get to like 7 figures. Cool, sorry. I think we lead here. Fucking hell. I got the seat. Okay, cool. Trying to keep enough tables going, actually play poker. It's relatively tough. I think I'm just going to try to make an ace indifferent there or something like that, but... crying a little bit here. Okay, he needs to now change an ace into a bluff, which this guy's definitely capable of, but it's tough to do. There we are on the big pots, or somewhat big pot, I guess. I'll check down and hopefully win. Nice, we do. No limit hold'em and stuff these days. Rick is getting higher and higher. And then below 5 and 6 have good games alive as well. Okay. So I think intuition exploits is the best way. Yeah, I would. Yeah, like basically like I said, the EV gets transferred from one player to another. Like print. Okay, this will be somewhat clear because this guy is going to put in like a lot of random shit. Now he has a flush draw, but. Let's say recall here. That's good. He's going to put it in with a lot of random stuff, right? So if we start overfolding there, that would be horrible, basically. It's not the greatest example, but like another example is like, let's say you're playing Russian cash. You're playing versus the knit fish, the guy that has a strategy. His strategy is to click fold until he hits like the top 10% of his range or something like that. You'll have guys like that, right? Playing that pool. Then clearly the highest EV strategy in some cases is like when you're on the small blind is open any two or limp and then limp a bunch of hands, open the rest. And then if you limp, he will auto check back quite often and you take advantage of that. We will go ahead and put here, I guess. So, like playing GTO in that sense, like it would be moronic. Like it would be as close to moronic as you can get. Let me see if did he bet the turn. This is gross. I think I'm going to call. Oh wait, it's actually a straight closing turn as well. Oof. Shouldn't really be betting a jack though. I think that's quite large. I think an ace is mostly betting the turn. I'm going to call though, but it's kind of close. Nice. So yeah, like guys sitting. Let's say you're sitting against. The most clear example is like the most extreme one, right? Like you're sitting playing against. We've had this in the CFP. Some guy that was playing a bot and the bot broke down heads up and he folded any two. Like, are we going to like whatever open 78% of our hands because we are heads up and that's what we should be doing, or are we going to open any two? Now, any situation in poker is similar like that scenario in the sense that you'd want to think of where does the EV come from for you in this specific situation. Sometimes in theory, oftentimes in practice. Like there's plenty of situations where the out of position player should have the nuts on the river quite often and he never has because of the line that he takes. And it's very unintuitive to play the hand in a way where you still have the nuts on the river quite often. So you should take advantage of that then, right? If you think that that's the case. I feel like when I watch a video, I have a hard time apply what I learned because I'm not making notes in my own words. Don't make notes, right? I always try to be as active as I can when it comes to studying. I made flashcards, I made notes. When I was in Poker Detox, I built entire websites in Google Sites, Google Sites. So I didn't like actually design a website, but like I structured it for myself, and then I shared it with the rest of the guys. So yeah. For what it's worth, I still think No Limit Hold'em is beatable for a reasonable clip. Like it will be next to impossible for me to make 300k tax-free. Like I'm not going to be making it here in the Netherlands, but last year in Andorra, let's say like 270k tax-free. It's really hard to make that anywhere. And with online poker, you have the option to go tax-free pretty much. And in some countries, it's already tax-free. Like for instance, the winnings that I'm winning on GG here are tax-free for me. But I get less rake back and less promotions. Okay, let me try that. Got some more seats going. I feel like I catched up on all the questions. It was quite stressful. I'm trying to also play my hands, and then sometimes I'm playing like 5 tables right now, so it's not 4 tables actually when I'm just observing. So it's not extreme, but having to read the question, and then sometimes you've got like a random hand going on. Yeah, it can be tough. We wait, I mean, no, actually can't pull that. In I don't know, a couple of years ago, before we moved to Andorra, we moved within the city where I live, from one house to another. Basically, what ended up happening was like we needed to move because my wife was pregnant with her second child. I was working from home, so I needed an office. We had 3 bedrooms, it wasn't enough. And so we decided to go and do what one does, and that's just like go on like a bunch of housing visits and like trying to see if something fits. And the very first house that we visited was the house that I'm in here, where I'm recording this from. And my wife's like, I'm not sure, it's like really old and like a lot of stuff needs to be done. But I was like, it's like perfect. It's close to the city center. Literally like it's a 1 minute walk. City center is quite small here, so it's not like Amsterdam or whatever, but like really nice place. Also like pretty old house, so it had like that romantic feeling of having like lived through multiple lives. It's like from 1928, I think. Anyway, that was the worst decision I could have made. I should have listened to my wife, because now like we've got all this problem with water, and yeah, it's been a total nightmare. Like half of the reason we moved to Andorra was to flee from the situation in this house because it was really horrible. So now we're dealing with it because we're living here again. It's a really nice house, but like the costs are insane to get this fixed. But we also live in a relatively small town. I guess I'm just going to call here versus 58 feet, but that's whatever. Random 2 overcards. Kind of, not random, 2 overcards though. Do we have a sample? 14 ends. Probably enough to just justify calling them. On a low texture where a lot of overcards are possible. So yeah, now we actually gotta get stuff fixed, and it's tough. It is tough. And we're now at a point where like, do we move or do we pay a shitload to get all of this stuff fixed to the point where it's actually fixed? If we do that, like we are never going to see the value of that in our back in our home, because like home prices are relatively low here compared to the rest of the Netherlands. Still high compared to most places in the world, but not to the point where you can like put in 100k and expect to see it back anytime soon. So, So yeah, my brother-in-law he's an architect, and he just sent me a bunch of messages like, okay, let me read through this real quick. Like, oh, we close WhatsApp. Just don't look at it for now. I'm going to call here. It's kind of a largest sizing, but if we hit an 8, I expect to make a lot of money. Getting like a slightly larger bet here is tempting to call, because he will be betting too often, but also he will call raises too much. I'm going to actually raise quite relatively large because it's a 2-tone texture, and yeah. If your GTO accuracy is, let's say 90% there, but the population accuracy is 70 and below, the 10% is going to worth, if some win rate, yeah, some, but it would, like, objectively it would be worth a lot more if you'd play less accurate as well in some cases, right? Clearest example would be bluffing a hand that shouldn't be bluffed in theory, but you know that the pool's overfolding massively because they're playing inaccurate. Like, if you are going to go try to get the highest accuracy, then you do best versus the solver, but you're not playing versus the solver. And clearly the pool is overfolding in a bunch of spots quite a lot. It's not 2018 anymore, so I'm not saying like player checks in some random spot, bet range, bluff river always. But there's plenty of spots where I think you should play unbalanced, if that makes sense. And run the risk of, I don't know, sometimes like folding a pure defense, right? Like those situations are also there. You have a spot that an equilibrium would be a call for 2 big blinds, but you and I both know that there's this exact player, like John, the 69-year-old, pun not intended, army veteran from the US that has been folding for 6 hours, and that now decides to go crazy on an ace, king, queen, 9, 8 texture with a flush closing turn. It's like, okay, well, our hand should be winning 2 big blinds, but is it actually versus this dude, right? Or aren't we better off just folding there then? Same thing with like, there was like a high stakes player that was, in a lot of ways I actually respect him a lot, so I'm not trying to shit on him specifically, which is why I wouldn't aim him, but basically it was a run at once, no, not run at once, it was a Russian cash video. And one of the first things he says is like, I'm going to be playing GTO ranges. I was like, that doesn't make any sense if you're playing GTO ranges always, because like there's players that are playing like 13% 3-bet, trying to exploit everyone. If you've got, there's going to be situations where you're on the cutoff and you've got 2 of those players behind, like open tighter, right? Like it doesn't make any sense to do that. Fold pure opens, play inaccurate. The other side is also true. Check call on the flop is fine, check fold on turn is fine as well. If we are playing, I don't know, Russian cash, and we are, let's see if I can find someone that is clearly super nitty. Is this one of those guys? Let's say you're playing versus Seth the Ronin here. And he has this over 1,000 hands. It's 87 hands, not enough, but let's say he has this over 1,000 hands. We are on the button. Don't open GTO ranges, right? That's like ridiculous. It's like lighting money on fire, and it's not, doesn't make any sense. And everyone exploits to some degree. And I can get behind a lot of the I should have said, like, people that are like, yeah, well, you have these, let's call them the Brazilians, not because I have anything against Brazilians. There's like some really good Brazilians in this pool actually, but like I think everyone kind of knows what I'm referring to if you've played a lot of online poker. Like these stereotypical, very aggressive dudes that are trying to push in every spot where they see data says a small overfold or whatever. That's an interesting spot. I'm going to bet. Yeah, like that also is not the way to go. So you shouldn't be playing pure GTO. You shouldn't be playing pure exploitative and trying to like eke out every little bit of EV in like the most obvious ways. This is gross. Okay. Which town do you live near? Not sure if I want to say. But I live in, let's say, a coastal town in the outskirts of the Netherlands. The Netherlands is very small, so saying outskirts is kind of moronic. But, yeah. Yeah, I guess like that's a reasonable like thing to say. I have nothing against John. John is a very nice guy. He just doesn't like bluffing, and I'm not going to call guys that are not bluffing. They're not bluffing. We'll check back here. Like another cool example from back in the day that I've used myself a lot is like there were a lot of lines where the bigger you bet, the more you got an overfold. And so like one of the instructions in Poker Detox was to, in those spots, bet 3x pot. Right, so I'm playing in a random game, let's say on GG. And at the time there were like 60 players in Poker Detox. We all had access to the same strategy. I'm in a spot where I face exactly 3x overbet. I don't know the name, but I don't know every player, obviously, on GG. And what are the chances that this random regular is choosing exact 3x overbet with his value, not all in, which would be, I don't know, 3.5x or 4x, or like 5x, whatever. Not 1.5x, not 2x, but exactly 3x, right? Just as in the instructions of Poker Detox. You click call with third pair, they show a bluff, you're like, okay, you were one of us. Like in it, like back then, it worked like a charm. Like I'm not trying to shit on like the stuff that we had back in the day, but like I think we should probably have collectively thought about it a little bit and just bet 1.5x or 2x or something that's a bit more common, so that we don't stand out too much and don't overdo it, so that people don't catch up to us. Because like if I do that like 3 times, like let's say I'm sitting at this table, I do it 3 times in 100 hands, and someone's paying attention to it. Like, hey, wait, this guy again, he has middle set, right? Maybe not. Every rec I talk to get 95% GTO with accuracy score. I definitely don't have that. I'm not sure. I definitely don't get like 95% accuracy score. Then again, I rarely study to. Like I rarely study to. Like there's a few spots where I think drilling it makes sense. But even then, you probably don't want to just drill random GTO solutions, because, yeah, I don't know, doesn't make sense to me. Face a c-bet here. Hi, cool. I block a 4, so I think this is going to be pretty decent check back. Because a 4 will check the river quite often. So if I've got a 4 in my hand, I make it less likely that he's going to have a 4 in his hand, making it more likely he has some random high card hand that might bluff the river. We'll bet here. And also, I block some 2-pair. So betting myself targeting 2-pair doesn't really make sense. On the river I got a bet, but on the turn I think checking back is better. I'm going polar from the big blind here. If I go polar, then I will need to check reasonably often on a texture like this. I think my hand just pure checks now, or checks at a very high frequency. And there's nothing we can do there. We just fold and move on with life. Here we mostly cool with this, but we rolled very high, so we're going to 4-bet now. Interesting spot. I'm going to bet small, but not with my range. Because like I actually need to check quite often here. I'm going to bet this though. Like back to straight roll, back to flush roll. I think I want to bet this. But I'm not 4-betting 7s and 8s. I should be 4-betting 8s sometimes. in theory. In practice, I'm probably never going to do it. And he will have ace-queen quite often himself. Although he should be folding ace-queen offsuit pre-flop at least sometimes, but yeah. I'm going to have ace-queen offsuit as well. Ace-queen suited, not so much. Seems like a pretty decent texture for him. One of those textures where it's relatively deceptive how strong it is for me, I think. Could be wrong though. Defending versus min open here. Got a call with a gut shot where we used 2 hole cards. You should be raising there, I think. Even on flush closing. With the queen of diamonds especially. Here we 3-bet pre-flop. Going to bet small. And then this would be a barrel, I think, on a king or a queen. Maybe here as well. I've seen a similar spot where you want to bet your jack X quite aggressively. I'm going to, but I'm not sure whether this is one of those where I'm just overdoing it. Overdoing it in this spot is not too bad, so I prefer overdoing it, but might just be a punt. Here we're heads up. I open, he calls. I'll check back here. He puts it, to which we're going to time bank a little bit and then call. Half pots. Going to min click it, I think. Like, we're up against a 7 quite often. Wait, if we min click it, we get to a 30 big blind pot, which would yield an additional big blind. In rake, we can't overcome that by him calling weaker, I think. So we need to decide, do we raise a large here? I don't think we do. We don't call. I think we just call. It's kind of shitty, but and we got 3-bet here, pretty small sizing, so we can still call king jack quite comfortably. Check. I don't think he's over folding here. I think, in fact, he might be over calling. But my hand doesn't really want to get one street close to showdown. I expect to over realize if I do this, basically. I'm going to, I'm going to check. Yeah, this play type is going to over defend. That's kind of annoying, but that's just the way it is. This feels like ace king, ace queen. Is he going to fold here if I put in a ton of money? It's tempting to shove, to be honest. Oh wait, I wanted to swap this one. I don't think I do that. The feeling is going to call. Here we have an interesting spot. C-bet flop. A 3-bet pre-flop, C-bet flop, he calls. Turn he bets 2/3 of the pot, I check call, which is already pretty close. River doesn't really improve my hand versus his range too much. I'm going to fold if he shoves. Yeah, I'm going to fold here. And I've got a bluff catcher. And my bluff catcher is not worth that much, I think. Here versus Gilbert, we are going to put a lot of money in. It's just something I wouldn't necessarily do with this hand, but this guy seems to be, yeah, I think I'm just showing a bluff as well. The perfect moment. One of the worst textures. Checking would be great. I hope we can check this down versus pocket nines and win. That would be ideal. I think versus this guy we just called off. It sucks, but we need to be correct 1 in 5 times here. That's cool. Here I overbet the turn, I get raised. And I gotta check here and we're checking back. I would have folded anyway, but it's always nice to at least give them the impression that they make a mistake. We'll check back here. I hope to get to showdown. Going to say loose versus pocket nines. Single raised pot, he checks, I bet, the flop he calls, turn, check, bet, call. Now we've got to decide. I think I'm going to overbet here. I could call, I could raise. Probably calling more often here. Not an awful lot of raises on a texture like this. We'll go 3/4 and check on a texture like this. I don't think this hand gets in there, although, yeah, probably it does get in there. He should have some check folds with ace X, which would be great, but I think we just got to showdown and lose quite often versus queen 10 and hate life. Queen 9. Did you did you feel stand-up comedy and decided poker was for you? Like there's this chat. I just like fucking around a little bit. He says, "Did you feel stand-up comedy and decided poker was for you?" Yes, and then I filled that poker too, and now I saw coaching. He did not like me joking around, I think. This is pure call. People don't chew at the big blind enough. It's close. funny how some guys like, I don't know, like if someone is like needling me, I would be I don't know, I would like bring some lightness to the game, right? Like it's like one thing that I really like. You can say what you want about the Shirashi guy. Like if you wait, let me just close this table and I'll show you. I always needle him in the chat, and then at one point he commented on a YouTube video, and I wasn't like, he was commenting on his own name, which I at the time wasn't around. Like he wasn't like playing on his own name on GG, and his comment was, "So many room to improve, too many bad plays. I seen you shot 5k now, which you're not close to ready." That was like one of the comments I got on a random YouTube video. I was like, "What the fuck? Who the fuck is this dude?" And then I saw his name, Zalko Tokic. He was commenting on his own name, and again he was playing on the Shirashi online, and I was like, who the fuck is this dude, right? Like, why would you comment that? So I was like, who the fuck is this? And then I was like, wait, this must be Shirashi, because I'm always fucking with him in the chat. So like, and like his name was kind of like Serbian East Bloc sounding. So I was like, this must be him, I guess. I sent him a DM, like, is this you, dude? What the fuck? He said, yeah, it's me. How did you know? And we had a laugh, and yeah. Like now, every time he bluffs me, he shows it to me. And every time I bluff him, I show it to him. And every time I delay c-bet and he folds, I announce that he's going to fold. Like stuff like that. It's just like, I don't know, makes the game more fun to me. But you have a lot of guys that take it personal, I guess. It's a typical Monday on GG right now where games are pretty bad. All the recreationals are like, let me not pump money right now. This is going to be a different week, new me. And all the recs are like, fuck man, I drank way too much on Saturday. Didn't do any of the studying or playing that I was supposed to do on Sunday. New week, new me, let me grind it out. So like Monday is like typically the worst day of the week in terms of win rate. This is pretty annoying, not a great spot to be in, but I can't fold here, I think. I think he's playing a bit more passive, but I think like I should still call here. I'm not sure. I'm not sure about that. Yeah, it's probably okay. But like, why do you see tank on the river? The river is like very clear, right? Like you're not going to value bet king jack there. That seems like too much. Interesting spot down. I'm getting a 3-bet here by someone that has 3-bet. Like, is he sitting on another table? Let me just go through. I'm not going to fold, obviously, but I just want to see. Is it actually this low of a 3-bet frequency by this dude? Jonathan, where are you? Oh, here it's higher. Here it's very low. Here it's higher. Okay, we just call, I guess. We could 4-bet as well, but I'm not entirely sure about this 3-betting frequency. People typically 3-bet not enough from the big blinds. I'm getting a quick check. I have a very clear bet with a pocket jacks here and a club. Now we get an insta fold. I should not have chosen this sizing, to be honest. On this particular run out, I should be checking an awful lot. I still call though, because I've got an ace and a spade draw. I should go over bet or check or something like that, but okay. What the fuck was that? I'm so confused by that hand, like that doesn't make any sense. Usually when it doesn't make any sense, there's either he's making punt, which could be the case, or there's something for me to learn. So you always want to come at it with like zero ego. I guess like he's saying, you've got too many draws here that are betting. And therefore I can raise an ace here and check back river and do quite well. Which is a reasonable, like that's probably reasonable. I like the idea, if that's the idea. At the most random value bet here. This is weird. Flop goes check check. I block bet the turn on the pairing turn, which is, this is probably not a great, but okay, whatever. We block bet. He calls. On the river, I'm like, kind of want him to fold like an ace high. It's kind of gross. I should probably not bet, but block betting 20% probably is not the worst either. He might occasionally fold ace high, whatever. He calls me with worse. What the fuck? No, you're making a horrible bluff if they call you with worse. was going to say I'm not getting 3-bet in as often as I should here, most likely with like 2 tighter players. And then they 3-bet me. Excuse me. Probably going to wrap up. Tables are pretty bad right now, which is not super surprising. Already made it kind of into the leaderboard now. Should be a pretty good table though. Snap call is rough. On the turn, we can go with a bunch of different sizes. I think our hand just bets pure. Or near pure. We can check back aces, kings, queens a bit more often. Getting a lead here, this shouldn't really happen. I'm just going to raise it and then look at the timing. Okay. Random raise here. I squeezed, I think. Did I squeeze? Yeah, I squeezed. 2 hearts is calling. This is a weird spot. Do we just shove? I think we just call. Like, we want him to randomly get it in with queen 9 of clubs, which he will do at a non-zero frequency, and he might fold versus shove now. So I'm just going to pretend that I think this is a tough spot and call down. Could be worse. Sure. Fair enough. Here we opened small blind calls. I decided to check back. You could bet, but I was timing down a little bit. Here we are going to get all the coins in versus Sultan. It's not a great start. The ace is also very dirty. Jesus Christ. Could be worse. Don't do it though. Okay. I can live with that. Like we could have had it a lot worse there. Alright, so I think we're down a little bit. I'm not entirely sure, but feels like we're down just a tiny bit. I could be wrong though. Like, let's see. Maybe we're down a lot. We are effectively break even. We're down a little bit due to the rake. 240 bucks in rake. So yeah, we're down like 100 bucks or something like that. Which is break even, right? I'm just going to say we're break even. Up until this point, we've played 2 sessions in this 1 million hand challenge, and we've played 0.2% of hands with a current profit of a couple buy-ins, I guess like 3 buy-ins. Still a long ways to go. There's a slight chance that I'm not going to start playing evenings, and then what I'll probably do is just like play my regular games. 1K, 2K, maybe mix in some 5K online poker, and just focus more on like actually making money rather than doing a challenge or playing the most comfortable hours or whatever. Right now I don't see that as a reasonable possibility, but who the fuck knows? Like I told you guys about the house. Like if we need to invest like a shitload of money, then I might just like put my head down, grind it out, grind the money back or something like that. But I've worked a lot in the, especially like oh actually I could have worked a lot even when I didn't have the company, because then I was still working as a teacher. And the first year when I had the company, I was still working as a teacher, doing the company, and also trying to build my own bankroll further. So I was like, I've worked a lot over the last few years, and this year is the first year since like January is the first time in 6 years or so where in the evening I don't work or sleep immediately. I guess a better way of saying it, I used to just go to bed at 7 p.m. and wake up at like somewhere between 3 and 5, depending on how often I needed to get up for the kids or whatever. Because I had young kids that were crying all through the night sometimes. And I really liked it. Like I really liked just hanging out with my wife, watch a Netflix series, read a book. Yeah, just like chill wake up with the kids, make them breakfast. So like, always like was one of those guys that was like, okay, if I have this amount of money, then I'll be happy because I won't ever have to work again. And then I got kind of to the point where I was really close to that amount of money. And I've moved the goalpost a couple times as well. So like, I remember having a call not too long ago with someone in our team, and he basically was like, wanted to do a career planning session with me. I was like, okay, this is kind of the plan that I've got for my career. And like, one of the things that he said was like, if I've got 200k, then I'll go into like a more cruising mindset, like not playing every hour, not trying to eke out every little bit of variance, sorry, every little bit of edge. And I started laughing, and I said, "What's up?" I said, like, that was me like 6 years ago. And then like 200k become 500k, and like et cetera, et cetera. I don't want to tell you the exact amount of money that I've got, but it's very easy to move the goalpost, because every time you're thinking, well, I'm actually secured now when I've got this amount of money. For me, it's not necessarily about, okay, I want to do this or that, or it's tempting to 3-bet here and isolate, and I'm going to go small. It's very wide, but okay. I got 4-bet. I actually want to defend here, but 6-7 suited, because it retains equity quite well. So I guess that's what we'll do. But basically it's very easy to move the goalposts. Anyway, I got to a point where I was really close. And then I thought, and I was like, okay, what will I do once I get there? I was like, okay, probably the same things I'm doing now. I would just like do it like I would play poker late in the afternoon. I would make sure I've got more free time to spend with the kids. Like, okay, I can do that now. Like, I'll still get to that number most likely. It's like very unlikely for me to get to that number at any point. So turns out it's not about the number, but more about the process. He doesn't really have any 8x. He's going to have some diamonds, but I think this is just a very high frequency bet for us. I also don't have an extreme amount of 8x, right? Like, plenty of random cards in my range. I'm going to have like 6s, 7s, 6-7, 6-5. That would value bet here though, because he's going to have queens plus ace king quite often. This is such a fucked up river. We got a bluff now. It's just kind of like change our hand into a bluff. He doesn't really have a 10 very often. He's going to have pocket 10 sometimes, I guess, but if he does, then GG. Like, he doesn't, I have more 10s than he does there, which is why I bet the river. Frustrating, but it is the way it is, I guess. He's going to have diamonds too, I guess, but I'm going to have diamonds that want to value bet. Probably have got a few more than he does, because he's going to be check raising them on the flop sometimes, check raising them on the turn sometimes. He's going to have like queens plus quite often. It's just going to be tough for him to call. I feel like I kind of need to bluff, but yeah. One of the spots where, yeah, like what can we do there, I guess? Other than be frustrated, right, with the results. Anyway, labels. Blue is more passive leading. Orange, red, more aggressive, solid leading. Yellow in between. Green is recreational. I'm not very active with labeling, as you can see. Frustrating hand. I think I should be bluffing there on the river, because I just have the nuts more often. Go spot down. Not sure. Cool hand though. Like, yeah, what can we do? Rough hands. What can we do? Rats. Oh well, what can we do? Got one table going on now. I'm probably going to leave it, although it's kind of gross to leave with a 60 VPIP recreational. I'm going to call you because this guy's punting, but yeah. By the turn your hand into a bluff there, you could have just checked behind on that 6-7. I could. You have to. Do you have to bluff there? I think so. We can look at it. Like let's look at it though. Like we'll wrap up here. We're on the big. Okay, we'll do it like this. We'll leave next blind, and then we'll look at it. My intuition says that we are going to have more diamonds, more tens, because our bluffs are mostly containing a 10 or 2 diamonds. On the flop, on the turn, So, but I could be wrong. Like, I'm not 100% sure. But usually when that's the case and it's a split pot, the guy that has the most amount of strong hands just bets very often, if not their entire range. But let's look at it in a second. Like, I'll pull it up after we close this table. I'm going to 3-bet here. Hope we can get a call. Annoying spot. If I bet small, he's going to raise too often. If I check, he's going to, like, the pool is going to be betting roughly the correct amount. I'm going to check, I think. I guess we got a fold there. It's gross, but yeah. Okay. Looks like we might be getting another shot at this. Raise. Fuck, Jesus Christ. There he folds. It's an interesting spot. Like, I think we have to bluff there, and I think because we have more diamonds and more tens in our range, because he's not really 4-betting too many 10x, although maybe a little bit, but like ace-10 suited is already folding pre-flop, I think, in that spot. He might be going a bit wider because I saw in recreational, but yeah. Like, realistically, I'm going to have ace-10, king-10 at some frequency, although king-10 is already kind of iffy, I guess. Pocket 10s. A bunch of suited hands. But let's look at the sim. Seems like a cool spot to check. Was it this table? Yeah, it was this table, so let me screenshot it before we lose it. And realistically, right, like, he will have to call split pots. So if I'm right, which I'm not saying that I am, but like intuitively it feels like I am, then he will have to call split pots. I could never bluff, right? Although I want to stress the goal is not necessarily to lose the minimum amount in spots like this. The goal is to win the most amount long term. But okay, let's say, let's go with that argument for a second. I could not bluff. If he just calls the same amount of hands in theory, then it probably, kind of depending on how what the spot looks like, it probably doesn't matter too much. Although we might be able to bluff to the point where you just get EV from bluffing. You make, like, I don't know, pocket queens, pocket kings, pocket aces indifferent, and then we would still make money, if that makes sense, because we get him to fold a bunch of hands. But we'll see in a second. Like, I'll close GG before and then. Alright. Cool. Leaving this table. Okay, let's look at this hand, right? So, is it this one? Yeah. This one perhaps. Okay, this one's fine too. Okay, cool. We've got the screenshot here. We'll study it a little bit. This is, I could be wrong, right? Like, I'm plenty wrong, but we'll see. So this is cutoff opening, button 3-bet, big blind, has some 10x, I guess, but like a bunch of them is folding already on the flop, I think. Anyway, we'll see. And then we are going to call here. Okay. Flop is Oh wait, we've got it here. 9, 6, 5. With a 9 and 6 of diamonds. 9, 6, 5. And we bet 25% roughly. So some diamonds already raising, right? Ace Jack, Ace 10, King 10 of diamonds calling, but King 10 of hearts, spades, clubs folding. Makes sense, right? He's going to shove some overpairs as well. Cool. Let I actually see how often do we bet here. We bet very often here as the imposition player. Makes sense, we call, okay. Turn was a 7 of diamonds. 7 of diamonds. And we bet range pretty much. Again, for 25% sizing. I would just simplify the range bet, okay. So far, so good. Now, he should be raising stuff like this. I don't think that's happening. He should be raising aces. That's not happening. So I take this with a grain of salt already. 8 of clubs. He should be lead jamming. Wow, okay. I would not have expected that. Because I thought we would have a more 10x here. But apparently he does. With pocket 10s. We aren't going to... Oof. It's interesting. Bet the turn with pure. And he's going to call it pure. Okay, I want to play around with the AI, not necessarily because I want to be right here, but I want to basically, what I'm going to do now is I'm going to give myself the benefit of the doubt in every aspect. So I guess we'll keep it here, we keep it the same. And then on this 8 of, was it an 8? 7, oh yeah, because I made 2 pair. 7 of... I want 25% here, confirm. And I just want him to not check raise aces there, because I don't think that's happening. And I don't want him to check raise random ace queen. Okay, so this is more reasonable, but like still these ones are raising. I don't think that's happening. This is also relatively unintuitive, right? So let's say hand frequency. I'll give him a call with those hands. Aces. Oh wait, this should be 7 of diamonds, is it not? Yeah, okay, that's my bad. 7 of diamonds. Again, lock here so that he doesn't try to bet himself. Check. So far so good. And then here again, what we're saying is I don't think he is going to shove aces, queens, and I also don't think he's going to shove like the ace of diamonds here. I just don't think that's happening. I could be wrong, but I don't think it's happening. King jack of diamonds. Yeah. I'm going to give myself the benefit of the doubt as much as possible and like give him a few more raises with some hands like this. Like king, queen, king, jack, king 10 of diamonds. Cool. So this would be the best scenario for us, I would guess. Ace 5. We'll let him call these ones. Ace 5 of diamonds in my race. Okay. Okay. Something like this, right? I guess like the fact that he has pocket 10s. And that's a lot of combos here in a very narrow range, just pushes this over the edge, which I didn't consider as much in game. That was an 8 of spades, 8 of clubs, okay. He should still lead range here. And if he checks, then we check back. Heaps, I guess. Okay, we're indifferent with all hands now. You could bluff, you could not bluff. And he calls range. This is such a weird equilibrium. But like, if he bets this often, then basically this is happening. I don't think he's leading range here. Like, this is the problem that we have. Like, I think he's actually closer to checking range than he's to leading range. If he's checking range, then we just don't bluff. Oh, now we still bluff. Wow, that's weird. We bluff even more often when he checks range. Just something that rarely happens. I guess like we check more. Oh, sorry, like our betting frequency goes down quite a bit here, but it's mostly because merge stuff is not really betting anymore. Oh no, wait, we don't have merge stuff here. It's just this is a removal type of thing. We are bluffing here. It doesn't really matter for the EV, I guess, what you're doing. Let's say we do go all in. Then he gets to fold a reasonable amount now. Needs to call ace king still, these ones. Does he do that? I don't know. Like, maybe he just calls range and moves on with life. Maybe he folds sometimes. Tough to say. I think overall what stands out most here is that I expected us to have more tens and he has more tens, so which is the most important thing here. Who has the most amount of tens, right? And I somehow figured that we would have 10x more often on the turn here because okay, we bet range actually here, so. But I think like the amount of pocket tens specifically is vital there. I guess like one thing to consider is that we probably are going to be betting tens much more often on the flop as well. So it's kind of like tough because you get into a situation with very narrow ranges. I would probably range bet here on the flop, which might be a bit much, but yeah. Okay, well, we learned something. My labels is a bit late for that, but like my labels, orange and red are more aggressive regulars, yellow average regular in terms of aggression and spewiness, and blue slightly more passive, and then green is recreational. Interesting spot here. I think like I made a mistake. Pretty clear mistake if you look at what should happen in equilibrium. If we should be betting range, then we just messed up quite a bit, and it's really hard for us to make it work. Like, I guess the only thing we can do here is like not look this and then let us better pocket tens always, which I guess we do. I guess like one less try to try to see if I can get myself to being right. Which is not the goal, right? But like, if I try real hard, this is annoying because, okay, if we not look this, just go range, but does it work? I'm not sure if he will. No. Okay, this seems to be, yeah, fixed. Okay, cool. What was it? 7 of diamonds. Let's see if we can make this work. Pocket tens never betting. Would we bet pocket tens? That's a good question, actually. Would we bet pocket tens on the turn? That's like the most important question. I could see yourself not betting pocket tens, to be honest. But okay, well, like the goal here is see if I can get to a equilibrium where this is right. If I still can make it work, then definitely it's a mistake. Otherwise, it's probably still a mistake. But then there's It's a bit closer. Yeah, okay. So clear mistake, right? We tried everything here, and we couldn't make it work. So this is just a function, most likely, after looking at a bunch of sims of me not understanding how many pocket tens there is in both players' ranges. I overestimated it in my range, underestimated it in his range, perhaps, and therefore felt like I should be bluffing the river. I thought it would be reversed here. This is relatively sensitive. We actually have more, like he has more tens now? Wait. Yeah, I guess like there's some 10x. I would bet these 10x though. But anyway, like it's probably close enough that we don't want that we want to mess around with it too much. All right, cool guys. Thanks for tuning in. Had a lot of fun. I'll probably be back on Wednesday, but we'll have to see. And yeah, cheers to you all if you're playing